Paris was always known as the city of love, the place where hearts collided, and the streets echoed with whispers of passion. Its timeless beauty and romantic ambience had the power to bring people closer, to make even the loneliest soul feel as if they were a part of something bigger, something profound. But for Charlotte, Paris had become a city of quiet longing, where every corner reminded her of the love she had once known and lost. Charlotte had arrived in Paris 3 months ago, hoping to start fresh. The end of her marriage to Benjamin had been a slow burn, one that lasted years and yet seemed to fade almost overnight. Their love had once been the stuff of dreams, full of promise and bright futures. But somewhere along the way, it had crumbled under the weight of unspoken words, unmet expectations, and growing distances. Benjamin had been everything she wanted, and yet, everything she couldn't keep. In the beginning, Charlotte had been drawn to him because of his unwavering charm, his infectious laughter, and the way he made her feel special. He was the type of man who would stop to help a stranger on the street, who would buy her flowers on a random Tuesday, and who had an uncanny ability to make her feel like the world revolved around her. But as time passed, the gestures began to fade, the flowers became less frequent, and the laughter was often replaced by silence. The moment Charlotte realized that their marriage was slipping through her fingers was the night of their anniversary, just a year before they parted ways. They had sat in their favorite restaurant, the same one where Benjamin had proposed to her so many years ago, but this time, the air between them was thick with discomfort. Charlotte had tried to smile, tried to recreate the magic that had once existed between them, but the connection was gone. The warmth had been replaced by a coldness neither of them could deny. Benjamin had stopped listening, stopped seeing her for who she was. His mind was always elsewhere, distracted by work, by his own battles, by a life that seemed to be slipping further away from Charlotte. And yet, she had stayed, out of love, out of devotion. She had told herself that things would get better, that this was just a rough patch. But deep down, she knew that no amount of love could fix what had already been broken. Now, here she was, standing in the heart of Paris, with nothing but memories and a broken heart. Charlotte had tried to fill the void left by Benjamin's absence with the vibrant energy of the city, wandering the cobbled streets, sitting at cafes, and immersing herself in the sights and sounds of the French capital. She had hoped that by embracing the beauty of Paris, she might heal, that perhaps the city of love would teach her how to love again. But the truth was, she had lost faith in love altogether. The sound of a soft violin echoed through the streets, drawing her attention to a small square not far from where she stood. A street performer was playing a beautiful melody, and the soft notes wrapped around her like a warm embrace. For a moment, Charlotte closed her eyes and allowed herself to be carried away by the music, forgetting the pain that had become so familiar to her. It was then that she saw him, Benjamin. He stood at the edge of the square, looking at her with those same familiar eyes that had once made her heart race. He was different now, older, perhaps more tired, but his presence was still magnetic, just as it had always been. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat as memories flooded back, memories of laughter, of love, of a time when everything seemed possible. But this was no longer the man she had married. Time had taken its toll on both of them, and the years had changed them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Charlotte couldn't help but wonder if the love they once shared was lost forever or if there was still a chance for them, even after all this time. Benjamin stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "Charlotte," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of years gone by. "I didn't expect to see you here." Charlotte took a step back, unsure of what to say. "Benjamin," she replied, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" "I came to find you," he said, his words simple but full of meaning. "I've been thinking about you, about us." A chill ran down Charlotte's spine. She wanted to feel anger, to feel resentment for all the pain he had caused her, but instead, there was a deep sadness, a longing for something that could never be again. "I don't know what to say," Charlotte whispered, her eyes welling up with unshed tears. "It's been so long. I thought I'd moved on. I thought I'd forgotten." Benjamin reached out, his hand hovering just inches from hers. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were," he said softly. "But maybe we can start again. Maybe we can learn to love each other differently." Charlotte looked at him, her heart aching. Could they really go back? Could they rewrite the story of their love, starting from the very beginning? The thought seemed impossible, but a part of her, the part that had never stopped loving him, wanted to believe that it was possible. "Maybe," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Benjamin stepped closer, and without a word, he wrapped his arms around her. The warmth of his embrace was a balm to her wounded soul, and for a moment, she allowed herself to be enveloped in the safety of his arms. The weight of the years, the heartache, the loneliness, All of it seemed to melt away in that one fleeting moment. It wasn't a perfect solution, and it didn't erase the past, but it was a beginning. A glimmer of hope. As they stood there, surrounded by the sound of the violin and the bustling streets of Paris, Charlotte realized something. Love was never perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale, and it wasn't something that could be fixed with grand gestures or empty promises. Love was messy. It was full of pain and sacrifice, and sometimes, it meant learning to let go of the past in order to embrace the future. In that moment, Charlotte understood the power of love, not the kind of love that sweeps you off your feet, but the kind that endures through hardships, through mistakes, and through time. Love was about sacrifice. It was about choosing to stand by someone, even when things weren't easy. It was about embracing the imperfections and learning to forgive, both yourself and others. As the last notes of the violin echoed in the air, Charlotte pulled back slightly, looking into Benjamin's eyes. "I don't know where this will lead," she said, her voice filled with uncertainty. "But I'm willing to try, if you are." Benjamin nodded, his eyes full of emotion. "I am. I've always been." And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of Paris, Charlotte felt something shift within her. The city of love had not healed her wounds, but it had reminded her of the power of love itself, the kind that wasn't always easy, but was always worth fighting for. Love, after all, was a reflection of who we were, both the broken and the beautiful. And in the city of love, Charlotte had found something she thought she had lost forever: hope. As they stood there, hands intertwined, Charlotte realized that the embrace they shared was more than just a physical connection. It was a symbol of the strength they had found in each other, of the love that had never truly disappeared, no matter how much time had passed. And perhaps, just perhaps, love had always been waiting for them, in the heart of the city where it all began. And so, as the sun began to set over the Parisian skyline, casting its golden light over the city, Charlotte and Benjamin stood together, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that love, in all its forms, would always be there to guide them home.